This isn't English speak. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Adaptive Podcast.
Hey-o.
Hey-yo. We joined you tonight for episode 19. And for those of you who have been with us throughout the entire journey, thank you so much.
Wow,
tonight we are proud.
19. It's crazy.
19 episodes. And we are proud to announce tonight we have with us Professor Joe again for the second time, this time in person.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Am I on?
Yeah. Professor Joe.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you.
There you go.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
As always, our podcast is brought to you by Radji Barrett Jiu Jitsu Academy. Check him out at Radji Barrett Jiu Jitsu on Instagram and RadjiBarrettJiu-Jitsu.com. Don't forget to check out us on Instagram as well at Adaptive Jiu-Jitsu and AdaptiveJiu-Jitsu.com. We have a lot of cool rash guards and patches there and a lot of new products coming for you in a couple months here, hopefully by the mid or late summer. And yeah, that's all the intro we got tonight. We're going to revisit some of Joe's journey in jiu-jitsu and martial arts and all that stuff. So
I'll try my best to recollect.
Yeah, I think kind of what we want to do is something similar to what we did with Radji, you know, kind of do a little bit of origin, go back to, you know, Greece and
So out of the womb.
Starting with Alexander the Great.
yeah, started back in Greece. We're starting in Greece.
Out of the womb.
Yeah.
When you start crawling to walk.
There was a big lapse. There was the fall of the Greek Empire and then the creation of gyros and souvlaki. You know, so everything in between, I can't attest to that. So
yeah. I may or may not be responsible for all of those things. Oh man,
That's hilarious.
plausible deniability.
thank you, Professor, for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, thanks for what you do on the mats too for us. I mean, you're inspiration, and you
Thank
really
you.
have taught us a lot. You know, on and off the mats, you've taught us a lot.
Of course. Thank you.
So yeah, let's jump right into it. So let's start like your childhood. What, you know,
Okay.
where'd you grow up? What influences around you? You know, sports, family.
So I grew up in this area. Born in Union County, Elizabeth.
Mhm.
Lived there for a little bit. And then there was about a little over a year time frame where I lived in Cyprus. It's a Greek island, for those of you who don't know, with my grandparents for about a year. And then I came back here, returned to Elizabeth at 2 years old. And then from there, immediately we moved to Woodbridge. So I grew up, born and raised all my life in this area, Middlesex County.
Nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Same here.
Yeah, exactly.
All this.
And I grew up in a very, very, a little bit of a strict Greek household. If you know Greeks, Italians, people that are from the old country, my parents were first generation off the boat. I was first generation as well as my brother. And we lived in a household where, you know, my father was in charge, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you play sports in high school?
Yes, I did. So as I was growing up, my first love was baseball. Played it
Really?
for about 4 years as a child.
But you don't really watch baseball.
I
though.
don't.
That's
I used to
funny.
enjoy watching it.
Okay.
And then I don't know.
We were
what
just talking
happened.
about going to a game. What was that last night?
Well, not you offering up tickets.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
You
right.
wanna- I was like,
You're
you wanna
right.
come?
Yeah.
He was like,
Come
no.
with us.
No.
He's like, no, why not?
I will supply them all day, but you're gonna have to drag me there. But I enjoyed baseball as a kid, you know, and then I kind of tried almost every sport. My mom was very supportive of us. You know, in the winters when there was nothing to do, we were in a bowling league. So
Oh, that's cool.
I bowled for probably about 10 years as a kid. And then
What was your average?
180 something.
That's good.
My high game was pretty good. It was like a
Yeah.
291. I
Yeah.
did that over at Carolier Lanes, but I haven't picked up a ball in years.
Mine was 284.
Yeah, that's good. I mean,
Yeah.
shit, a 291 is only a
Yeah.
couple misses.
It's-
Damn.
Yeah, it
I
was.
thought, well, I was in a league
Isn't
for
it only
like,
one miss?
Mhm.
Yeah.
like like 2014, I was in a league for like a year.
Oh, that's fun.
And it was like the most. I actually bought 2 bowling balls and shit.
Nice.
And I had my highest game was a 284.
So you bought one for the first ball and then the spare ball.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Because I did a league with like 2 like coworkers or whatever.
Mhm.
And I was like, ah, fuck it. I got into bowling for like a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was a teenager, I had a 185 average.
Oh,
I
that's
did a
awesome.
couple leagues.
Yeah, I was
My high game wasn't definitely not 290, probably 240, 250. I think around
That's
there.
good too,
That's
though,
awesome.
man.
Not bad.
Still great.
Dude, the only sport like I can't like all sports. I'm very like I want to be like strategical, technical, like understand everything about it, be good at it.
I don't get
Bowling, I have like I really have an attention like disorder when it comes to bowling. I just start doing different things. I throw the ball, I spin it, always end up in the gutter.
Yeah, it's definitely an intricate sport. The interesting thing about that sport is that every alley has different levels of oil on the lanes. So if you're used to playing in Majestic Lanes in Hope Lawn and it's got a certain level of oil on it, and then you go to Carrot Little, you're like, oh my God, my spin has to be adjusted. And that's why the professionals are who they are, because they can adjust like at the drop of a hat.
Now, wasn't for a while Majestic one of the only places that still had non-synthetic lanes? Like they had actual wooden
that's a good question.
lanes. You don't know?
I
think they were for a while. So I don't know if they
otherwise.
It's a synthetic wood, so I guess it's like a what do they call it? Like the is it not linoleum? No,
I have no idea.
Laminate. It's like a laminate sort of.
Really?
It's not a real wood, which the oils react differently to.
Yeah, we tried going one night as a family, my wife, my son, and I, to Carolina Lanes, which is now Bolero, in North Brunswick, and it was like for 3 games, it was over $100 with rentals, and we're like, all right,
right now,
see you later. Yeah,
on a Saturday night, it's like a whole production.
Yeah, it is. You're paying for a lot more than just.
I know, because I got
the overhead.
Yeah, exactly.
Ugh,
I've heard that the overhead traditionally of a bowling alley is like not great anymore these days. Anyway, which is why they're trying to.
No, and if they don't
inflate it and impregnate it with all these arcades and black lights and beer bars, right? Like the Bolero experience.
All they need to do is
hang out.
You need to make other money because to run those machines and the maintenance and everything that goes into bowling, like
you have to have a technician working.
You can't charge a low enough price where people aren't like, what the fuck, $100 for 3 games?
You probably have to pay people's medical fees for having what is it?
Foot fungus?
When you get strobing lights. Ray has it.
Epilepsy.
Dude, when was the last time you guys went
I don't
to
think Ray has epilepsy.
Midnight bowling.
He has something. If he's watching, he'll tell us what he has.
Anticipating a comment from that.
He has something where if he sees flashing lights, he passes out. A friend of ours.
Just to sidestep for a second, we do have some comments from before Amanda was calling out the echo that we had in the intro. I did hear it. I think one of our mics was open again, but that's okay. We do it all the time. That's like our thing now.
Guys,
and
come on.
Coochie is saying to Professor Joe, the nastiest neon belly in the game.
We're going to get to that. Don't worry.
We'll
get to that.
We'll definitely get
True
to
story.
That. He's the inspiration.
So even though we got sidetracked here, if you guys are listening and you bowl, what's your high score? What's your average? Do you know anything about bowling?
I'd love to know.
I don't put my thumbs.
So wait, to go further in this. So you went into bowling, and then after that,
so that was like the winter thing, right? Because there was nothing to do in the winter.
How many years did you do that for?
In the leagues for probably about 4 years or so.
So 4 winters?
10 years total that
Oh, okay. 10 years total.
Yeah.
Shit.
That I bowled.
That's
bowled in tournaments here and there.
What the fuck, man? How come we haven't gone bowling?
Because Joe's a wuss. His shoulders.
Oh, it's fucking bad. Yeah, that's a thing.
So how heavy
shoulders are very involved in fucking bowling.
Well, I rolled with a 10-pounder, and then as I got older, it was a 14-pounder. Then you can roll the ball a couple different ways as you hold the ball. You can have your holes drilled up to your second knuckle. Was it your second knuckle? Or you can go with the first knuckle. So I was a bowler with a second knuckle, and then somebody convinced me at the pro shop to get a one knuckle ball. So I did, and it was the worst thing I ever did because my average went down. I couldn't control the ball. It
was just different.
You need
at that
big
point.
hands for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I didn't have that. I knew immediately, man. Like
because you have to spread them, when you're holding the ball. But the funny thing that at the time, when you look at a bowling ball, right? I'm sorry, bro. I don't want to miss all the funny jokes. But inside the ball, there's a core, right? And I like that. You would think that the core is circular, a round core, but no. Depending on the way you bowl, the core could be shaped like a hammer with a post and a base. So there's a couple different shapes.
It's
so
off
for the
weight
spin
to one side.
Because if you have a high arc, right, you want the one with the hammer because it comes down hard. So it increases the spin as you get closer to the pins, right? So, and I never roll. I rolled with a circular.
Did you do? Right? You use your thumb, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a weirdo.
You held your thumb out. They do that.
No, I throw the ball like you do. And I do a single digit. I don't. My fingers don't go far into the ball. It's here, and my thumb's on the outside.
Sure. Yep.
So I don't even need a thumb hole because I don't use it.
That's what I felt like my wrist was gonna snap, and my thumb would get stuck in there.
Yeah.
So, dude, I had a crazy. I don't know, man. It worked for me. Just the two fingers, bro.
Whatever works, bro. I don't think there's a rule in the PBA where you have to.
Who was the Australian guy that was like at the time? He was like top dog.
Argentinian.
No, he was Australian.
Okay.
And he did the two-handed.
Oh,
and he was a wizard.
Really?
I only remember
wizard, bro.
Dick Weber, Earl Roth, Let Monticelli,
No one knows any of these.
No, nobody does. Nobody does. And that's my.
But I know some of them too.
Yeah, that's the cross I have to bear. Useless information.
Yeah, that is. But there's a beauty to that because I can't name one.
I knew some of the ones.
I can't name one bowler in the world other than Joe Fiore.
And it's the only one that you should know.
It's the only one I should know.
So we, bowling, whatever. But I played on basketball, like organized basketball teams. I played high school soccer. I wrestled. I was a runner in high school.
So you dabbled in all the sports.
Everything that I wanted to try, it was supported.
I think Brian Ross saying you look like Joe Rogan.
Yeah, I hear that all the time.
Yeah, do you?
Thank you, Brian. I've heard that.
I've heard that before.
At my previous academy, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but at my previous academy, one of the students would call me Rogan.
Really?
Yeah, that's what he called me.
That's funny.
When I was on roids.
When I was a budding comedian.
Before I grew all my hair back.
Yes. So and then my sport was track and field. So as a kid, I was involved in local track and field through the actual church, the Greek church, And then in high school, I ran track, and I was actually using that term scouted, but there were some colleges, D3 colleges, that were, sending me letters and interested in me. But I chose to stay local, and it's an interesting story. I applied to go to Kean University and I got in. And then after I got accepted, I got a call from the track coach. He said, "Hey, maybe you want to come and check out the school. Or have you applied to any colleges?" And I was like, "Yeah, I can go into your school." He's like, "Great, come on over." So I took a tour of Kean University. And incidentally, that was my plan A, but I didn't have a plan B, right? So I was like, "All right, I'm going to go to school. I'm going to take business administration because that's what I was thinking would be a good idea. And then I'm going to run track in college, right?" First day of school, I'm like, all right, I didn't get a call from the coach. I wanted to do cross country because that's the season in the fall. So I looked into it further, and then I find out that they canceled the track program.
What?
Yeah. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm not running anymore. And then I was like, okay, well, what's my plan B? Took me about 8 years to figure that out, but I did.
You said 8 years?
8 years, yeah.
Oh my God.
So I did was I went to school, but I went part-time and I worked full-time.
Right.
And then I was like, all right, this is a grind and I don't want to do anymore.
Would you do full-time?
Restaurants. So that was the only, because I was going to school still. I would take like 1 or 2 classes per semester, not full-time.
Restaurants like waiter? Or
I was working as a waiter. I started as a busboy when I was in my teens. As a bartender, I worked as a bartender. And that was the only schedule that I could get that could work around.
So were you hustling in like the restaurant business, like trying to actively move up, or were you just like, all right, whatever?
No, because my idea was I was going to move up through school. Right. I was my means to an end was getting enough money so I could take my classes.
Right.
And then while I was doing that, I did, like everybody probably tries that, working at UPS at night. So I did that in my late teens for about a year or so. And they also had the tuition reimbursement. They covered, so that was a godsend for me. So I did that for a little bit. And then, through my 20s, it was school and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And then I finally figured it out at my late 20s. But going back to like the sports, track and field was my thing. I wrestled a little bit. So I had a good, before I came into jiu-jitsu, I was kind of familiar with the ground, just from wrestling for a little.
Of course.
So that was like my first love, track and field. I wanted to, I had this idea that I was going to go to Cyprus and make the Olympic team.
It's crazy because your high school track coach was my fucking chemistry teacher. Shimiki, man.
Yeah, Mr. Shimiki. God rest his soul. He died a year ago. Yesterday, I think it was.
That guy
that sucks.
He was awesome. One of the best teachers I ever had. Tough. It was chemistry, and he taught hard. He didn't give out grades easily. What happened?
I dropped off for a second here.
Oh, on the.
I got you. I'm working on it now. Did you drop off or did your phone die?
No, it's still plugged in here. Oh, I'm on. So nice. But to
seamlessly moving,
not to interrupt technology, Coach Shimiki, but Coach Shimiki was probably.
We also lost this camera.
Oh boy,
that's weird.
Yeah.
All right.
He was one of the most influential people in my life, and when I found out he passed away, I was very, very deeply sad.
Yeah, you told me about it. I was like, "Fuck."
Yep.
That was a bummer. He taught me a lot of shit too.
Yeah, great guy.
Yeah.
To boot. A moment of silence for Mr. Shimiki.
Yeah.
So I gotta be in his class.
So
proud of that.
Yeah, so, it's not easy.
Of those sports, before I get to my martial arts question, of those sports, other than that beginning love with baseball, was there one that was, was it track and field, or was there something else that kind of was?
No, it was track and field.
Track and field. Was that popular at the time?
No, that's that's a sport that it's a sport. It's a popular sport in high school, right? They have your state meets, your local meets, and all that. Okay, how's that? But that's a high school sport that's provided by every high school.
Right.
It's not like a.
And it's also an easy way to measure humans against each other.
Yeah, it's the tradition. You go back, thousands of years. The ancient Greeks. That was the pure sport.
See, I knew we were going to go there.
We're going to.
They created the Olympics, bro.
Yeah, we started everything.
Started sports.
And we cure everything with Windex. Remember
that? Well, that wasn't the ancients.
No, that was a modern discovery.
20 years ago.
And wait, did the Greeks invent Windex, or did they simply adopt it?
No, they found many uses for it.
Okay.
So yeah, and I had some mild success. I was the AAU Junior Olympics New Jersey state champ in the long jump as a 15-year-old, which was my claim to fame. We're off again. And in high school I had some mild success. I was, red division champ and all those good things,
Didn't
multiple
the Greeks
events.
do it all naked too?
They did. I didn't want to mention that.
So weird.
Amanda asked.
Yes, they did.
Oh, she did.
And
that's kind of their thing, I guess.
Yes, that's
nuts in the face, all sweaty.
Where did Joe get his black belt at? I like that question, Brian Ross.
Oh man, that would suck.
I did.
Get mounted and juice junk just shitting on top.
We're talking about naked jiu-jitsu now. What the fuck's wrong with you?
I did as a teenager. I did as a teenager have the opportunity to run on the actual track in Greece, the Olympia.
Oh shit!
The course.
That's awesome.
They had dug it out because they had abandoned the city thousands of years ago. But I was able to run that track as a child.
That's cool, man.
One of my shining moments.
Oh yeah, that's a memory you'll take with you forever.
Always,
yeah.
Always.
And you did it naked?
I did not, unfortunately. I didn't think about it. I was so excited just to run it.
We're going street.
So not the traditional way.
We're going to the quad.
You weren't very traditional.
You weren't traditional.
No, not in that way.
I
having no marbles.
It's come across a couple times in training jiu-jitsu where people are talking about doing wrestling. What? Fucking right.
He's reading my mind. I love it.
Why is your chest so smooth?
I have light curly hairs. Thank you very much.
Curly hairs.
It's just the light, Ray. It's just the light.
Yeah. Come check out my balls, bro.
I mean, he's still valid. Maybe we want to marker that up every week. For this.
Why are you so worried about his chest hair anyway? That's the question.
I think it's just glaring right off the center, so he noticed it.
He's like, "Yo, why are you so white?
You're still handsome."
Yeah, I nared it.
Why are you so smooth?
He didn't say he didn't like it. He was just asking where the hair was.
true. But he also has to draw it on.
So a funny thing we've talked about with wrestling. I really do like want to learn more wrestling to add to jiu-jitsu.
Mhm.
But I just every single time I go to watch it, why the fuck do they still got to wear the
Singlets.
singlets? Like, this is
So you
weird.
can feel their balls on your
It's if you ever watch the
It's
The
a
Breakfast
technique.
Club, it's the required uniform. You know. So,
yeah.
I don't know. I've questioned that too.
I mean,
you know?
it, like, you know, in nogi, it's just like you're still not gripping material.
Yes.
You know, you could just be wearing, you know, an adaptive rash guard, and some guys do it
Shameless
no
plug.
shirt, shameless plug.
Shameless plug.
Some guys do it no shirt at all.
Yeah,
Oh,
Not at our
no
gym.
shirt. No, there's some people that do no shirt. At our
sometimes.
gym.
At
Yeah,
our gym,
in nogi.
they wear the gi though over. The,
Yeah.
No,
Well,
I'm talking about nogi.
No, we don't have
no,
people. doing
no,
that.
no one does that.
Yeah, but you see them do it in competition. I see it online all the time.
Yeah, that's
Always.
competition.
Even ABCC, they do
makes
that,
it harder
you know.
to grip them. Yeah, that's strategic.
Yeah.
Yeah, Crisco me, baby. Let's go shirtless.
Oh, Crisco.
George St. Pierre used to grease up. You know.
They
Yes,
all do. I mean,
gee,
they,
I didn't
they
know
use
that.
Vaseline on their faces.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He uses Vaseline.
Oh shit!
Yeah, you know that song,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I know a girl who. So when did you first
Start
Do-
doing jujitsu.
do martial arts? Did you do jujitsu
nice.
first? Was it
No.
karate? Was
Actually, you know, so when I finished high school and I was in college, I had to fill that void. I needed to do something,
it,
right? So I said, "Oh, let me start going to the gym. I'll work out." You know, that was something that I did on a regular basis, tried to stay in shape. And I was like, you know, I don't know if I want to be the best at lifting weights. I want to do something else. So I always wanted to learn karate. So I joined a karate academy at the introduction of a friend of mine who was already training there, a local karate guy. I'll give him a plug. His name is Gary Alexander. He's been around forever. He was in the Korean War and he learned Ishinryu karate on the island of Okinawa and brought it back with a number of other of the Marines that were stationed there. And at the point where I joined, he was already older, probably in his late 50s or so. But even with that, he was a very imposing guy.
Mhm.
I mean, he was like 6'2",
Wow.
lean, lanky. And I remember like the first time I was there, they would do a warm up. So one of the black belts would lead the warm ups, right?
Mm.
We do our warm ups. And then once they do the warm ups, he had his desk. It was like you walk into the dojo and it was his little office, which is an open air office. And then the mats, right? Of course, you're not allowed to wear shoes on the mats except for Gary Alexander. So, and he would wear the army boots with the zipper on the side.
On the
Big,
mats?
yeah. Worse. So
What the fuck?
once the
that
warm-ups were
blasphemy?
done, once the warm-ups were done, then the black belt will welcome him onto the mat, and Gary would come on and he'd give you the nod to everybody, hello class, the deep voice, and he'd walk on with his army boots. Of course, you're the only one. He's the only one permitted.
We'll
And
have
then
to
he would-
break rule number 1 for this.
Yes, yes. No to rule number 1. And then he would demonstrate.
Yes to rule number one.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then he would demonstrate with those army boots on.
Mm.
So if he would show a
That's
a
weird.
back kick to the rib cage, you would lift your arm and do that back kick. Not 100%, obviously, but
But with
it's
boots?
still with the
So-
boots you felt it.
Not great.
Yeah. Not what you want.
And I remember, like, you know, they weren't pulling punches at that academy. It was like, all right, you're here, now you're going to spar like day one.
damn.
If you don't know anything, I don't
Mhm.
care. So in the back corner, when we would spar, you know, everyone would sit on the sides, and you'd have to hand pads, foot pads. But then for headgear, it was nothing but a football helmet. So you'd pick your choice. You had
Weird.
most of the NFC East helmets and a couple of other ones, right?
Yes.
So I'm like, all right, my only choice are the Eagles, you know, but I'm a Giants fan. So we would wear the football helmets and we would spar, and it was like a fight to the death, right?
Jesus.
Yeah, I was like in my early 20s when I started. But it was like,
Wow.
like they weren't pulling. These were military guys, and a lot of his students were police officers, and these were
It's
pretty
like the
rough
helmets
people.
aren't really
Yeah.
helping you.
No. And they would
That's
turn
wild.
like they would, because you didn't have a
Yeah.
strap. So if it was too big, it
Yeah.
would turn, and while you're trying to straighten it out, you're getting kicked in the head. It's
Yeah.
like, nah. So I was at Gary's for
Not
probably
meant
about-
for like kicks.
Mm-mm.
Not meant for
You know, we
getting
were
hit
talking
like
before.
that.
We were talking before the episode started of writing skits for things like this. I mean, this you almost can't write this shit.
Mhm.
This is like the perfect
Right,
skit,
Amanda.
bro. I mean, you come in and you're picking up football helmets, and You get kicked with
What
boots.
was it? The fistful way?
It's amazing.
Foot fist way.
Yeah.
It's
Jiu-jitsu sucks.
it's legit like a
Man,
Netflix
it's Cobra
special.
Kai.
Yeah, it's the Netflix special Cobra Kai.
It's like it was like the closest thing to I think it's like the Shukokai.
Joe's Ralph Macchio.
Yeah, so I did a couple of years with Gary, and then I
he's done.
stopped for a little bit.
So you all right, Ed?
No.
Salute.
Keep going.
Get him a Zyrtec.
So I stopped.
Sorry, Joe.
No, it's okay, no problem. And I stopped for a little bit. Then I took up another hobby where I started riding motorcycles. So that was my thing in like the mid '90s.
Mhm.
And then I also switched to Taekwondo. So I wanted to learn another different type of stand-up martial arts. So I did some Taekwondo a couple years. So in all, I think I might have like close to 5 years of karate and Taekwondo under my belt.
Mhm.
But then motorcycles were my thing in the mid.
What type of
90s.
motorcycles?
Sport bikes.
Sport bikes.
Sport bikes. Yeah, I've had a number of them.
Little crotch rocket?
I've crashed a number of them too.
Really? You ever get hurt?
Yeah, pretty bad.
Really?
So I'll tell this story. So I actually got into the accident right over by the Wendy's over on Route 1.
Right
on
here?
Old Post Road.
On Old Post Road?
Yeah, 1997, 98. And I was coming across the road, and there was a fella trying to
Across
get
Route 1.
right across Route 1 from the ShopRite side. And the fellow was trying to get to the driveway, the entrance to the Wendy's.
Mhm.
And he cut across the road and hit me head on.
Wow.
And I went over the bars and I hit his roof, and then I spun and I hit the telephone pole right there. It's still there, the pole. And I landed on my right side. So I broke both my legs. I dislocated my shoulder.
Damn.
And I like my pelvis was all messed up pretty bad. Like it was it's jagged, Anyway, so they took me to the hospital. They cut my leather off, and I was angry because it was an expensive leather jacket, but they cut my leather off.
They left you with assless chaps.
Assless chaps, And they
all
took me to the
chaps
hospital.
are assless, by the way.
It's like,
That's
this is traumatizing for me. Stop making
Yeah.
a joke out of it.
And the funny thing was, I was still going to the gym at the time, right?
still have those pins too.
So here's the funniest thing. So I'm laying there at the bottom of the telephone pole, and the paramedics are working on me, and the Edison police officers are there
Holy
blocking
shit,
traffic.
man.
And so they cut my shirt off, they cut my pants off, they cut everything. And there's an officer looking down at me, and I'm dazed. I don't even know I'm there.
They
Right?
just cut your clothes off
Everything.
like a hot dog. Like
just like that.
Yeah,
They
those
you have
little
no
scissors.
idea.
Yeah,
So
they
you have
have
no
those-
idea like how long you were there before they even came, all that stuff. You
Nope.
were just fucked up.
Nope.
Wait,
I know that
you're just naked on Route 1. You're junking
a little bit off Route 1. So
Hey man, your dick's hanging out.
I smell burgers.
yes. So
Somebody get me a cheeseburger if I'm gonna die.
So there's an officer standing above me looking down at me, and he asks me, "Hey, do you go to the gym?" And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "What gym do you go to?" And I'm like, broken legs.
I'm dying here.
I'm dying over
man.
here. He wants to have a conversation with me about the gym. Right?
What the
I
fuck?
threw
He's
some
eating
gym
a
in him.
frosty. He's eating a frosty talking to him.
Yeah, it's like all
He
nonchalant.
was trying to
about
take you out of the moment.
Yeah.
it. Yes, but he didn't though. So it didn't work. It didn't
He
work.
wasn't gonna
Yeah.
fix his broken
Didn't
legs.
help.
I was trying to give him the benefit.
Yeah. So they took me to the hospital. I had 2 operations on my left leg. So they
Oh
put
my
one
God.
metal rod in there, and then a couple of months later, they pulled the old one out because the bones didn't fuse in my leg, and I was putting all the weight on the pins in my knee and my hip.
Oh.
So I went back in, and then they put the second rod in,
I
and then
felt
I
all
had
that
surgery
pain.
on my right shoulder. And that was probably about I was in a wheelchair for probably about 3 months or 4 months or so.
Wow.
Shit.
Damn.
And then when I was able to walk, I went right back to college. I was going to DeVry University at the time, right? I went right back to college, and I shouldn't have. I should have waited another
Shout out to
semester.
DeVry.
Yes, great school.
I went to
at the time.
DeVry.
God bless you, bro.
Yeah.
Yes.
Alumnus.
My
Did you
brother
take what'd you take? TCOM? What'd you take?
I took no computer science.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Very good. Yeah, great school. I found a job before I graduated. It was the early 2000s. The .com
Mhm.
craze was there. I mean, everybody made money at that time. you know?
Yeah.
And then suddenly in 2002, it crashed and nobody made money.
I actually got checks cut back to me because they lost some class action lawsuit about overhyping their guarantee of employment after
yeah.
getting your degree there.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is years down the road. I just started getting checks in the mail.
Good for you.
Hey,
didn't get
holla.
Hey,
Yeah,
it's
I
like giving
didn't,
me all the loans back.
I guess
okay.
the only thing I
But I still valued my education there.
Yeah.
Honestly, and I got a job. So,
Yeah. You know, and
I got a job at Diebold.
Oh,
Yeah, you made
awesome.
you made something out of nothing.
Yeah. Yeah,
And they paid me back.
I went in not expecting
Thanks
them to
to
find
Ryan.
me work. So I was like, while I was going to school, I was trying to network as much as possible. I would go to job fairs. I would actually go on tours at prospective employers. So I was lucky that the semester before I graduated, I found work.
Mm-hmm.
And then I worked in telecom for the subsequent 7 years before the market kind of collapsed a little bit.
Yeah.
Where were we before that? Was I talking about something?
We're talking about like how we got to jiu-jitsu.
Okay,
like
so-
martial arts.
So karate,
How
and
old were you?
taekwondo, right? And then motorcycle accident, and then nothing for a couple of years, just work. And I was going to the gym, and I was like, all right.
How old were you? Like, what's the stretch?
I was okay. So this was a stretch of between I was 25 when I was started taekwondo or so, and then I came up to about 33 years old, right? So if any
That's
of
when
you,
the accident
if any of you want to know, I am 50 years old, and I'll be 51 in a couple of months. Anyway, so I started jiu-jitsu at 33. I was bored because I would go to the gym and I would come home and I'm like, all right, this is not the life I want to have. And I always wanted to do jiu-jitsu. I was lucky enough to get to see and watch the very first UFC, the first time it was ever printed. And I was like, who is that guy? This unassuming Gracie dude that is literally kicking people's butts with what they call arm locks and chokes and stuff.
What was the first UFC? 91,
UFC
92?
won in 1993.
1993.
November 93.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember it was around Thanksgiving time, I think it was.
Yeah, and didn't in the year like 2000, was it George Bush? He signed legislation so that they could only show mixed martial arts pay-per-views.
No,
And
they actually took it off pay-per-view, I think.
They took
And that
it
was
off
McCain.
pay-per-view.
McCain was the one that was anti. He would call it human cockfighting, I think, or something
Yeah.
like that. He was
Called
like
it like a savagery.
Exactly. Yeah, November 1993, exactly. Around Thanksgiving time, I thought. But yeah, so McCain took them off the air for a while.
Right. It was at least 4 years that there was no
Yeah.
mixed martial arts on
Yeah.
on TV, and you could only watch it on pay-per-view.
And that was it. Yeah, at that point.
It
in
was
time,
it might as well have been porn. Like that's how like
I mean,
Yeah.
that's how they treated it.
Yeah,
sure.
so for you, for those of you who are listening that don't know, the UFC was actually created by Rorion Gracie to showcase the effectiveness of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. So he was actually the founder, and I believe it was John Milius who actually designed the octagon.
oh wow.
He's a writer. He wrote a number of screenplays. I'm not sure if you ever heard of Glenn Ross.
Yeah.
And he was just on Rogan a couple of weeks ago, Milius. So I believe he was the one that designed the octagon itself. And it was just
Well, it does. I mean, not for nothing. It's like modern gladiator shit.
yeah. Well,
That's
because
all
you
it
had
is.
you had Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
There's something
you had
primal
wrestling.
about it, but we all gravitate towards it.
And you mentioned I was mentioned on the last podcast with Radji on, who was the guy with the one boxing glove? Yeah, Art Jimerson.
Yeah.
So they wanted to throw in a boxer
Dude,
too.
yeah.
Can you, Len, when you get a chance, can you pull that up? It's was it in UFC 1 that
Mhm.
that in UFC 1 there's a guy
The
who
one boxer
fought with one boxing glove.
Yep.
Yeah, it wasn't successful.
No, I know.
No, he got
How
taken
could that
down,
be
mounted,
successful?
and he got submitted
Yeah.
pretty
You're
quickly.
putting yourself at a complete disadvantage.
The
Like
the story behind Art
It's
Jimerson.
fucking stupid. What are you doing?
Yeah,
A minute 44. I mean,
there
what
it is right there.
what clip are you looking for
That
specifically?
was
Right,
one.
any one of those, the second and third one,
Yeah, it's
UFC
gonna-
throwback
yeah,
fight.
That's gonna be.
Yeah, that's
the
all.
one.
It lasted less than 3 minutes, I
Yeah.
believe. Most of
It
it
was
was
not
the
that long.
announcing.
yeah, we don't
and
even need the
introduction.
audio for it.
I don't know
We
why I
just-
took it to Facebook, but
But yeah, that was like, like literally, and again, no disrespect, but his style was boxing, and they wanted him. They basically threw him
Well,
to the wolves.
at that time,
Yeah,
dude. Everybody was one dimensional too.
of course.
So it was like martial art versus martial art.
Yeah,
you
of
know?
course.
Yeah, like testing like a sword versus a nunchuck and seeing like which one would
Calibur.
So here
Look
he
at
is. He
this.
comes in here. He has the glove on his left
This
It's
hand.
like one.
and he's
like,
got
You know
his
what
wrist
this looks
wrapped.
like? This looks like if somebody was playing a fighting
A
game
fucking-
and they were like, I'm gonna make a my
dude, you
player
remember Ready to Rumble?
and ready to rumble.
You remember the video game Ready to Rumble? It's like a caricature. You know what I mean? It's like all those. It was a boxing game, but it was like they were all caricatures. This guy looks like a caricature. He has one boxing glove. Where is that effective? The other dude.
I don't understand it, to be honest with you.
No,
Like,
it's silly games.
What possible thing went through his head that he thought that this is going to make me better than you?
Yeah, that is weird. Why does the boxing gloved
like-
hand have an advantage over the right hand?
Like,
Why wouldn't they just both be
You know,
bare?
he was interviewed at one point in time about that. He did give a reason why he wore the single boxing.
Really?
The kicks are fire, though.
Does it give you that like just an inch more of range?
I don't
'Cause
know.
the
I don't
gl-
think that was even the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna beat
There
him
it
with this
is.
pillow.
So he takes him down. He quickly gets the mount. And he's done.
Yeah, it's all
So right there, he's
over
done.
from here.
I mean, what an easy
Like,
mount.
now
Right?
too.
I was just about to say
Right?
that was like the easiest mount I've ever seen.
There's
And
like
like
they-
pass on the side. There's a fucking glove on.
Yeah.
It's like you can't grab shit. Well, what would you think was gonna happen?
It's almost as if humans, yet we did not know that having another person attacking be
Well-
fully over your hips was a bad thing.
Mhm.
Bro, well, it's
He
silly.
just stepped right over.
Well, my point is this: it's like, why? All right, if you're going with one glove with
Uh-huh.
one open hand, like, why wouldn't you do both of either or? Like, it just seems like you didn't have
Like, that's what I'm
confidence.
saying.
might
It
as
doesn't
well-
make any
You
sense.
didn't have confidence
He-
in one or the other.
He might
so.
have-
It doesn't make sense that one is better than both of either bear or glove, right? It doesn't make
you
any
guys,
sense.
you guys remember the like the infomercials that they play at night, and there was the of glove, so you could pull shit out of the oven, and it was like a perfect glove, and you could like
Yeah.
and like not burn yourself. Like he might as well have been wearing that because that's as effective as that glove is.
You might as well have been wearing a fucking.
Oh, we missed it. See,
Yeah, you could see.
A sock and bop.
he was like, I can't handle the pressure.
Or I was going
Yeah.
to say, as Phil calls it, a soccer bopper, which I still don't believe is true.
I think he said that sock and boppers legally
about
changed
that.
their name to soccer boppers.
Oh, they did? Wait, did we
Yeah.
miss? Let's go
Jiu-jitsu
back
right
'cause we
there.
missed
He
it
just
for a
beat him
second.
on pressure.
alone.
Think about that. He panicked. He
Feet
panicked because he didn't
underneath
know what
the
else to do.
hips, and he's not doing anything else. Yeah, you're right.
No. I mean, it's
He
pretty clear
panicked.
that he's trained there. He
He panicked.
A tap.
Yeah,
He just
he
tapped
panicked from pressure.
From pressure. Yeah. And I think that's what the Gracies were banking on when they brought in the multiple martial arts.
Yeah, because isn't that the reason like Hickson didn't? They wanted Hoist because he was smaller. Like Hickson,
That's
Unassuming,
cool.
you know,
He was
Yeah,
like
I mean,
he was doing
he
some
didn't have any.
real.
He didn't have any fights under his belt, like,
Is it
like
possible-
actual,
Is it possible
mhm.
though? Like, so I know there's like some darkness behind some of the Gracie stories.
Darkness.
Yeah, well,
kind of darkness?
they're spoken about as if they're this pure jiu-jitsu family, but there's also a lot of opposing viewpoints towards the Gracies and how they like. For example, the three brothers, Hickson's father and the two brothers, supposedly beat the shit out of this famous wrestler in
Mhm.
Brazil who was teaching wrestling, but they beat him up like they showed up and beat him with like bats and shit.
Oh,
Like,
I never heard that.
yeah,
Like they
I
used
gotta
a weapon.
find. I'll try to look up.
Where's
his
That's
name
kind of
now.
contrary to
Where'd
jiu-jitsu,
you
right?
hear that?
I'll try to
Weapons.
look up his name. I think there's a book on it too.
I mean, there's a thread. that's
yeah, I
been
feel like we
floating-
could do a whole deep dive on stuff like that. It's good.
Wait.
Yeah, there's a
Good
thread
conversation for the
on
future.
MMA.tv.
Mhm.
There's a thread that's about non-Gracie lineage
Mhm.
because the Gracies make it seem like they were the inventors of Brazilian
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu, right?
And they're not
But historically, Mitsuyo Maeda was the guy that
Mhm,
came and
mhm.
brought
Mhm.
judo
from Japan.
from Japan. But he wasn't the only one. There were 3 or 4 other gentlemen
Yeah.
that brought, and they were also teaching alongside.
But
of
they were all
him,
Japanese.
Japanese.
Yeah.
So what they did was these were Japanese judoka that toured the world. So
Mhm.
Mitsuyo Maeda prior to that was in Cuba, and then prior to that he was in New York. So they toured around the world. He ended up settling in Brazil, and I think it's Rio de Janeiro.
Mhm.
But it wasn't just him though. So if you Google the search non-Gracie lineage jiu-jitsu or whatever, it'll take you to a thread where a lot of people more knowledgeable than myself have posted information on the Gracies and other lineages. There are different lineages like GFT GFT team. That's
Yeah.
a non-Gracie lineage, right? That's from Luis França, who was different. And there's a lot of stories about the Gracies and early jiu-jitsu and the origins of it, and if they really actually trained with Mitsuyo Maeda or not. So I'll leave it at that. But there's some interesting subjects about that.
So here's what I'm talking about. So the guy's name was Rufino dos Santos. He was a catch wrestler, very famous, and he felt that he could defeat the Gracie Jiu Jitsu. So he jumped into a ring at one of the Gracie brothers events, and he was dressed in a suit, and he took off his jacket and shirt, and with just his suit pants on, said, "I want to fight. We don't have to. We could do it right now. We don't have to do it right now, but I want to match up against you guys."
Mhm.
And apparently, they could never make it happen. And then he was jumped by them, and I think 2 of them actually did jail time for it. So it's not like this is like some
Legend.
like it's not a legend, right? There's
Yeah,
actually
it's real.
jail time on record
Mhm.
by the Gracies.
It's not a myth.
It's,
Yeah.
It's data recorded.
I still think that doesn't mean anything anyway, because
Yeah.
they were still able to generate enough energy within the sport for it to still cause good. You know,
of
sometimes
course.
bad things happen
Yeah.
and great things occur from it, you know. So just because they weren't, you know, an untainted family doesn't mean anything.
I think that anything that has magnitude has some dirt
Mhm.
that you can find.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Absolutely.
just
You're
unavoidable.
going to get your hands dirty on the way.
any
up, right?
kind of greatness,
Yeah, of course.
you know, whether there's overall right a greater good,
Although
there's
you
going
know,
to be some dirt.
the fact
somewhere.
is, though,
hard
if-
decisions have to be made,
I've seen interviews of
like beating a guy up with baseball bats.
Yeah, that's not fair. I've seen interviews of old timers in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, not old like red and white belts, but high level black belts. That they all attest that this is due to Rorion Gracie's efforts. Right, he brought Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to the world, basically. Right, he took it outside of Brazil, settled in Southern California,
Mhm.
and they started teaching out of the garage in their house in Newport Beach, and that's how they spread the word of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah,
Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, because he's actually
Southern
sued
Cali
some,
is kind of like the mecca.
of course. San Diego
Roof.
actually was for a
Mhm.
while too. I don't know.
Rufino actually beat him. So
He beat who?
Carlos.
Carlos Gracie.
So it says he got the better of Carlos during the match, who behaved in an unsportsmanlike manner, left the mat twice, and finally refused to continue
Mm.
a game. But patient Rufino dos Santos was declared the winner.
wow.
So Carlos Gracie wasn't really known as much for his fighting ability. He was the one behind the Gracie diet and the elevating of the sport itself. Elio was the one that actually modified it and perfected the movements for smaller people, you know, smaller guys, because Elio was a slight person. But the fighter of the family was George Gracie. So George Gracie was the one that fought in catch wrestling matches. He fought in Brazilian jiu-jitsu matches, regular wrestling matches, you know, the fixed matches or whatever. But he was the one. And essentially he was kind of shunned by Carlos Gracie because he would take those wrestling matches because they knew there were works, but the guy needed to make money. And then essentially he opened an academy near the Humaitá section of Rio, where Gracie Humaitá originated. And he was like, there was a lawsuit against him for opening a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, naming a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, even though he's George Gracie.
Right.
But then suddenly, like, his information on him just stops at a certain time, and there's nothing beyond that. There was a little bit
Weird.
in some books I've read, but not much. And maybe it could have been done on purpose. You know, to the victors, they rewrite the history, you know. So, but George Gracie was the one that was the actual fighter in the family. He fought the most. You know, and then Elio Gracie fought Masahiko Kimura in front of, I don't know, a number of people in a stadium. And there's video of it on YouTube, and Masahiko Kimura breaks his arm with the Kimura, right? But he was much bigger than Elio Gracie. And there is a video of him throwing Elio and just getting like blowing past his guard, getting side control, the Kizakatami, and then just like finishing him from there.
Oh shit.
Yeah, it's there in black and white. But yeah, those challenge matches were very prevalent back in the early part of the 20th century.
So when it comes to like catching your eye and getting you to think about jiu-jitsu, it was UFC 1. That's what started.
That was in the back of my mind. Yeah, always, because I remember what really prompted me to start considering it was my Taekwondo instructor. I asked him, we were showing us some movements, and I asked him, what would you do against like a Royce Gracie?
Right.
And he made this movement of like punching me in the nose. And I'm like, well, I don't know if that works because I've seen it in his matches and he never got punched in the nose, you know?
Yeah. Right.
And that's when I was like, okay, well, the traditional martial artists, they don't have an answer for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but maybe I could find the answer. So then a couple of years later, then I joined at 33 years old. I found an academy. Do you want me to elaborate about that? Right. So I did a little search online. I was living in Old Bridge at the time and I found an academy in Old Bridge. So I said, let me try a class. Came in with sweatpants and the academy owner gave me a gi top and I tied my belt and he goes,
You came in with a singlet?
yeah, like I came in with really, really tight singlet.
No, he came in traditional Greek.
Yes. I flexed before I came in. Anyway,
You fluffed a little bit.
Dicks in her hand.
This is really me.
Dicks in her hand.
The water was cold. I don't know if anybody's going to get that.
Yeah. Seinfeld.
Yeah. So,
He said, "You guys heard of the Olympics, right?"
yes. Olive leaves. So I tried a class and I remember it was February 3rd, 2005 was my very first class in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. There was 3 of us in the class.
Really?
2 brothers that they literally wrote everything down in a notebook and me trying to figure out, okay, what's going on here?
Right.
So the
Did
instructor,
they usually like a rag doll?
oh yeah, absolutely. I had a little bit of wrestling, so I wasn't afraid of being on the ground, right? But these guys were choking me, triangling me, arm locking me, and every time I got choked, triangled, arm locked, it didn't as much change my emotions. It got me more intrigued, right? So I remember after my first class, I came home and I looked in my inner part of my arms, and I counted 14 bruises inside, and I'm like, shit, I'm gonna go back. I want to learn this. If they can do it, I can do it. So in 2005, which is probably the 3rd wave of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu people, entering the sport, there weren't a lot of academies in Jersey. So in order for me to get my mat time, I trained at 3 different academies. Oh, wow. So I had my home academy in Old Bridge, but I also trained at an academy in North Brunswick to get more mat time. And then I drove up to Fair Lawn, New Jersey, about 56 miles to get mat time. Yeah. Because that's where it only was.
Yeah, sure.
There was Ricardo Almeida and then south and nothing else, right? It only started happening when
it's an hour drive.
Yeah.
And back then, cars didn't go. No, I'm just playing.
Yeah. And
back then, cars didn't go to the park.
Yeah. At that point, there were supposed to be.
There was only carburetors. No fuel injection.
Well, my horse got really tired.
My horse, yeah.
What the fuck?
So
sometimes the lantern would run out of oil on the way.
The British not even that much older than us.
No,
fucking assholes.
He's not even that much older.
You ageist son of a bitch.
Yeah.
I know.
We're literally just right behind him.
Yes. Oh, let me grab some of this wonderful bourbon that Lenny provided to us. 1792.
Delish.
Phenomenal. And I'm not a bourbon drinker.
Good stuff.
Episode 19 of the Adaptive Podcast is brought to you by 1792.
And what was it? What is the retail on that? $39.95.
It was a little less than that. I think it was 35.
Great deal. And I'm not even a bourbon drinker.
Smooth.
Delicious. Smooth. So anyway, I'll keep going. Right. So I was training at multiple academies, and I did make some friends with some individuals at the different academies. I wanted to do that. And that's how I kind of like made my bones. And then essentially probably like within about 2 or 3 years, there were enough students at my existing academy that I didn't have to travel often. I still traveled from here from time to time just to get some mat time in, but we had enough students where now it was mostly in-house. And there are some pictures of me on my Facebook page of all of the blue belts at the time, and it had to be 07. There was like 7 or 8 of us out of our academy. And of those people, as I look back on it, only 2 of us have got our black belts, earned our black belts at that point.
He was I seen the pictures. He was a little Melrose Place. Like he looked like he should have been on a 90s.
I tried to get
90s
that
romantic sitcom
James Dean look with my raised eyebrow.
Yeah.
The smell the fart acting.
Yeah. So you were going from those schools for the mat time. Were there other schools in the area, or it's just the scale of what we have now available to us is just
I say this like right now where we train, everybody's lucky because you have all the different ranks to train with that you don't need to go anywhere to find the training. the good training is right under our own roof, right? And we have all the different ranks. When I started, the gentlemen that were there, the two brothers, who actually ended up quitting after a couple of months, so it was just me as the highest rank there, and then people joined after me subsequently, right? You here where we are at Radji Barrett Jiu Jitsu, we have everything. I had to hunt for it for a couple of years, but then at the point where we had about 20 to 30 students, then it was good enough for me that I didn't have to spend most of my time driving for it, you know. But it didn't really start expanding on probably until probably like 09 or so, 2010. Then you started seeing them pop up because a lot of those first waivers were now at the point where they can open their own academy,
Right.
you know, and it was not uncommon for blue belts to open an academy at that point in time.
I feel like jiu-jitsu academies are almost like barbershops now.
They're everywhere now.
Like almost on every corner you see one.
Yeah.
Well, just because it's evolved too as a sport, and a lot of people are aware of it, and more people are intrigued by it.
So
absolutely.
do you think because there's going to be, you know, there's going to be people out there that you're going to meet that are ranked at a certain level that they're not really ranked at that level, from at least the standards that we're used to at our academy. Would you say that now the upper belts that we see in our academy are equivalent to the upper belts that you were seeing when you were traveling the state? Or do you think that they're elevated? They have a higher IQ than what you were experiencing?
I would say, yeah, you're right. Because there's much more information available, right? And there are many more places that you can train. But also there's different viewpoints of jiu-jitsu. Where I came from, the traditional Gracie jiu-jitsu, it's a lot of the basic stuff that I teach, right? So it's a lot of basics. But as the sport expanded, and then you were actually more of that information was readily available online, you have a higher IQ individual today, right? And you need that because then that'll also attract more people that want to try the sport. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Individuality almost
of course.
jiu-jitsu. Like
okay,
everybody has their own.
Like, you know, I can teach you an arm lock and a triangle and all that stuff, but it's up to you to get to that point. And I always used to say, and I still say it on occasion, it's position before submission. Everyone wants to choke someone and arm lock someone and all those good things, but how do you get to it, right? Now your mind is going to process it differently than Eddie's and Lenny's or mine, right? But I'm not going to tell you that you're doing it wrong to get to it. I'm telling you, I'm going to actually applaud you because you figured out a way to get to that submission based on how you process the information that's provided to you. Right. So that's the beauty of jiu-jitsu and the fact that it's out there for the masses. Anybody can try it.
Yeah.
And now that's a slippery slope also when you start discussing the level of competitiveness or skill, right? Because, and we've talked about this a number of times, like if you want an academy full of just competitors, then good luck eating, right? Good luck having your next meal because they're the pink elephant, right? You want to have an academy and a curriculum that's suitable for everybody because jiu-jitsu is for everybody. And when you join the sport, your goal, people have different goals, and it shouldn't be that your ultimate goal is to be a competitor. Maybe it's other things. And the beauty of this academy is that we cater to all those different viewpoints of what their expectations are of jiu-jitsu, right? Listen, if you want to compete, we can get you to a competitive level, right? If you want to just come in here and get the reps in, more power to you. We'll accommodate that too, right? So that's the beauty of jiu-jitsu. And then also, you know, people that are doing this, I mean, you know, the instructors and the owners of the academies, they need to earn a living. So when people walk through that door, you know, you're not going to show them a sport that they're going to get injured from, or they're going to get their pardon my French, their asses beat. They don't want that. So
I also think it's like injury could be inevitable sometimes, but I think if you just create a safe environment where people can trust each other, I mean, the injuries come, then it's like, all right, it was never like malevolent.
I'll deal with it. Exactly.
So I was just discussing this with one of our recent guests, Schloke, and we were talking about how when you're in the gym and you want to get better, that you need to have competitive roles. You need to have competitive training. That doesn't mean that you can't get something out of role that is maybe a flow role.
Mhm.
Maybe you're just swimming through the role and working on things,
Mhm.
or maybe you're working on a basic with a beginner,
Mhm.
and you're teaching that beginner that basic, and you're just re-ingraining that those basics in your head even further,
Mhm.
and preparing yourself again to continue to, you're almost solidifying your foundation again.
Of course.
Like, I power wash my backyard because I want to get the concrete ready to seal it so it doesn't get cracked.
Mhm.
I'm reaffirming that foundation, making sure that it doesn't get cracks in it. If you are sometimes maybe having not a competitive role, but you're teaching somebody, or like, for example, I'm 240 plus pounds. 240 plus pounds.
You pounds, bro.
I'm mentioning pancakes.
Spinal. I broke my back.
I broke my back. And back of the atomy.
Back out of me.
So I'm 240 plus pounds. If I'm rolling with maybe a 16-year-old
Mhm.
who's, hasn't even gotten their adult weight yet, well, okay, I'm not going to drop all my pressure on this person and try to,
Are you sure?
try my best moves with that person, because what am I gaining from that? But you know what? I can gain so much more
Of course.
by spending my time helping that person.
I think to your point, I think that every role you can learn something from, depending on, it doesn't matter what the rank is, right? If you
Absolutely.
roll with someone that's never trained before, they're a white belt, it's going to be the closest thing to a street fight that you're going to get into.
Because
without the
turkey
punching.
jerky.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing is going according to plan.
Exactly. But that's also a big part of your learning in jiu-jitsu at a higher rank, learning to control someone that's not playing your game.
Yeah, because
Right.
everybody starts falling into like rhythms and stuff like that. When you truly
Exactly.
understand jujitsu and movements,
Mm-hmm.
everybody kind of like falls out of that jerkiness and like spastic, like
Mhm.
and it's like in a real fight. Sometimes someone might just get a lucky shot because they're fucking spastic. So you have to be so focused and dialed in. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. And as you progress, ultimately your goal, I've said it a number of times, is like when you start jiu-jitsu and you're a lower rank, you're going to start on one end of the match, one end of the mat, and then you'll end up on the other end of the match after 6 minutes whereas you progress in your rank, you want to stay in that little square and you want to fit each other into what forms
we
a
had
puzzle.
a match like that.
Yes.
We were talking about the other day. We were like, yo, we didn't move from this one spot, but so much happened. It was like,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to fit in that puzzle. And I always also say is like, it's like a dance, right? And the dance is to fit within that puzzle, to find that space so you can advance your position.
You're not tripping over each other's feet.
No,
So
absolutely not.
So Joe, tell us a little bit about, your, white belt, a little bit into blue belt. Like give us something for maybe some listeners that are listening that are juniors here.
Wait 1 second before we move forward on that, just because I brought this up so that we can use it for some analysis for what Joe was saying before. This is Google Trends. What we're looking at here is Brazil. The search term on Google, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu near me. And how you read this is basically the 100 is like peak popularity of that search term.
Okay.
And this is going back to January 1st, 2004. So you can see it's almost flat up until around, 2014, 2015. And then it looks like it peaks at almost around 2020 for it dips a little bit.
That's COVID right there.
That's
right?
COVID, the huge drop off it must be. Back down to below 50% popularity, and then almost back up to where it was.
A month.
Yeah,
everybody was secretly doing it.
But yeah, I just thought this was interesting for Google Trends, because you see that, like Joe said, when he was training, there was 3 academies in New Jersey. There's nothing, and now they're all over. So just by the statistics, you can see why there's more gyms around, because there's more of a market for it.
Sure, more people are. Well, not for nothing. Like, think about it. MMA really. Boxing died. MMA became.
That's what it is.
The Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah,
right? That show really brought it to the mainstream.
And this one compares it to mixed martial arts, so it's still less popular than just jiu-jitsu itself. Actually,
look, that's what happened to me.
I think those people in the blue, they're the ones that just don't want to get hit. Right.
Yeah. That's a fair point. Sure.
That's
you see, there is some similarities here, but there's way more volume for jiu-jitsu itself.
That's what happened to me. I was a big boxing fan, and I played other sports throughout the year, played.
We finally made a man of you.
And Eddie was always mentioning it to me and wanted me to come in, and boxing fell off.
How many
boxing
years,
fell
bro?
off, and I was starting to watch MMA
Because of me.
and
Look at me.
look at me now.
No.
Oh yeah, it's a flap. Is it the yellow?
It's more popular. Yeah.
It's got the similar. You can
What is
you can
yellow?
you can overlay.
You can see
that
the
with
drop, but it's like
If you-
compared to the other two, boxing is actually way more popular.
No, it's
Well,
not.
that's probably because of
But
the
jiu-jitsu-
advertising.
Near
from-
me. Well, this is the term near me. So people who are looking to do boxing.
Remember
over these other two
boxing.
now-
things.
Remember
I
boxing
think-
is CKO.
yeah, exactly. I was going to say
That-
CKO's
yeah.
got a great marketing plan.
This is very general, right? This is all of Google. So
Yeah, it's bullshit. It's lies.
I mean, what else could I just do? Boxing. This is like an interesting segment we can keep doing.
It's pretty steady
That's steady, but
with
it's
a couple
low.
spikes here and there.
Look up bowling.
Bowling near me.
Oh,
there it is, see?
Terrible.
Not as popular
my
as
God.
bowling, not as
No.
popular as boxing, but more popular than martial arts.
Well, they have to
No,
spice
it's
it up a
not.
little bit.
As
It's
far as
the
search
green.
terms go.
Oh. Well, no, isn't it the green?
No, look at there's the key up here. Bowling is the green, boxing is still
Oh my god.
above it.
I'm just curious. Can you put in Starbucks and see what happens?
Now I'm no Google Trends expert, so I could be like not. Yeah, Starbucks. Yeah, yeah. Look,
Holy shit. It's steady
coffee
decline.
way more popular than everything else.
Incline.
Who would have thought?
Lenny, can you search crack?
Meth.
Can we just do a whole episode on what we think? We could take over-unders on what's more popular than something else.
Holy shit.
We could do like a flash round, like Joe,
All right.
crack or roller skating. Take your pick.
Come on, man. It's got to be
We're
roller
doing that
skating,
now?
right?
Crack or meth? There you go.
All right. What's your pick? What's more popular?
I
Crack or
think
meth? Meth is more
meth.
addicting.
Dude, Breaking Bad. Breaking
meth.
Bad.
Meth.
Dude,
I'm gonna go with
Better Call
meth.
Saul is
Crack
still out.
cocaine was cool in the 80s.
We've taken a huge left turn for this podcast, but
Holy
Meth.
shit.
vastly
Meth
more
is-
popular than
Meth is
coke.
up right now, bro.
It
Breaking
always
Bad.
has
I
been.
told you.
It always-
Breaking Bad.
It looks
This
like
part of the
Nope.
episode has been brought to you by meth.
Nope. It's always
Better
been
Call
more
Saul.
popular than coke. It has nothing to do with
The 80s?
this is going back to 2004, bro.
Wow.
Bro, I bet you if you
Guys,
went back to the
don't do
80s.
meth. Anyone's watching this, you see what I'm saying? Wow, crack was a fucking issue. Meth is. Look at the stats, guys. It's not good. It's not what you want.
You just stay there. Yeah.
I
It
don't know.
would have been funny if it was just a solid line on 100.
Oh my god. I don't know if we should stay here. This could get really dark.
No, we can do a whole Google Trends episode. I like
How
it
many
for
deaths have come from?
We're gonna go down a Google Trends. All
right,
right, yeah. Let's
all right.
move on. Let's move
All
on.
right, yeah. All right. So back to your progression.
Mm.
So something maybe some nuggets for the white belts, blue belts like myself, and your growth.
I would say, part of jiu-jitsu is participating in jiu-jitsu is trying to stay as healthy as possible, right?
Mm.
And I've seen, I can't even count how many people I've seen come through the doors of the academies that I belong to now and in the past. And everybody comes in very enthusiastic. And there's a good percentage of those individuals that they die off pretty quickly because they don't realize that this is a rather than a sprint, it's a turtle race.
Mhm.
It's a marathon. And if they're in it for a black belt, then good luck because you're not going to get one tomorrow, right? What I would say is that the most important thing is to preserve your health. So what I've found for me is that I wasn't learning more if I came to the academy and trained more than 3 days a week, right? Because I wasn't.
Oh, this is great. We've had this
we
conversation a
talked
lot.
about this, right? And that's just me now, right?
Yeah.
So I get the optimal training and the optimal mental absorption of the movements by training 3 times a week.
Versus 6.
I agree with this.
4, 5, 6, right?
Right.
Because at that point, you're going to be beating up your mind and your body.
So
right?
ultimately, you think that it would be wiser if you had 6 days that you could be in the gym doing jujitsu, that you spend like 2 maybe working out, like a cross training
drilling.
or drilling.
Yeah. Just pace yourself. That's what I've seen. I've seen people come out of the gate like real hard and then just fizzle out pretty quickly and just move on and give up, right? So it's all about pacing yourself. Look at the higher ranks as an example rather than a daunting view of, wow, man, that guy's like, just look at them as, okay, I can get there. But let me interview them also. Ask them, what was your path, right? How did
reflect
you
with them?
Always, right? Because that also helps encourage people too to continue along with the sport.
Right. As a white belt, like as any belt, you should never shy away from reflecting and having conversation about.
I think the problem with white belts too. Well,
the language isn't there.
It's just you're not thinking like that yet. You know, it's still so like
it's
premature.
It's like you haven't walked through the door in the hallway. Like you don't know what's behind that door,
dude. You're also fine. You know, like we talked about it last week, man. It's like it's the most honest. There's no lying in jiu-jitsu. So even with yourself. And you're battling through and like, dude, you truly find yourself a little bit. You see if you have will, you see if you have heart, you know, because sometimes you go through some adversity through in jiu-jitsu, you know what I mean? And it's like, you got to let go of the ego so you can push through that. So you could just go, yeah, I could fight another day and get better at this. And I don't have to like, feel like, oh my God, this was it in that moment. I'm so attached to it. You know, it's like, you just grow, you just let go of all that. And you just know that you'll just get a little bit better if you just focus, dial in, and not worry about.
And I mean, we have over 100 mentors in the academy, right? Ask questions constantly. The no question is a stupid question, right? So ask questions constantly to the people that are a higher rank. Even the lower ranks, they can give you an answer, you know, in some cases.
So for me, like I'm in there 3 to 4 times a week, and I feel like I have a solid 25 people that I can have conversation about different aspects of jiu-jitsu. I can have conversations about life, different aspects of life, you know, current events, so many different things. But even those conversations lead to better jiu-jitsu because our bonds are getting stronger. So when we roll and we take it to another level, we could do it in a way where, like you're saying, focusing on not getting injured. Because that longevity, what you can control, like that's one of the most important things is the luck of being healthy.
Of course.
So if you have methods and ways of staying safe, and simply it could just be by taking a moment to ask your partner how they're doing. Ask the guy that you're rolling with. Maybe you haven't seen him in like 2-3 weeks. Like I notice when my training partners aren't themselves. Like I was telling Eric the other day, when he was having his issue with his back, I told him, I said, dude, I could see how down you were. Like I guess you looked like you were defeated before you even rolled because you were thinking about, and I know where you came from because when I had my ankle pop from the toe hold, there was a lot of times when I was in there and I was so like all I could think about was don't fuck that up. Don't hurt that. And all of a sudden now your game is diminished to 1 gear. Like you can't do anything else.
You can look at it that way, but you can also look at it like, all right, now I get strengthened all the other aspects of my game because I'm protecting this one area.
Depending on the injury. And
depending how you look at it. And depending on how much you want to deal with it. Like here, I think, obviously, sure, Eric looked a certain way, but he was coming back because he obviously felt like, hey,
he's fighting
better.
But he's also fighting through that, you know, the tightness, the mental part of it too, because there's a mental part. But my point is that now what that does is that helps to hold us closer in our training so that we can compete harder and safer. And it's not this hobbyist jiu-jitsu. It's a true desire to get better. It's a true passion to want to be better.
And then elevate.
Even if it is hobbyist, yeah.
You know what? Hobbyists put food on the table. There are more hobbyists in every sport across the planet than there are professionals.
Because they're passionate about their hobby.
You know what I mean? Because not everybody's going to be a professional at the sport, right?
Not everybody can afford it.
Not everybody can afford it, right? But it's open to everybody, and everybody's welcome. Period. And then we've had these discussions, and the ones that don't belong generally weed themselves out, or sometimes they don't weed themselves out, and they have to be invited to leave. But anyway, so I would tell the white belts exactly that, right? I would also say that try to, how do I put this? This is the most fun you're going to have as a white and a blue belt, the most. I often reflect back to my white and blue belt days and the fun that I had that I missed because I was so hell-bent on learning jiu-jitsu, right? And not learning the fact that I made some relationships and how I progressed and just reflecting. You learn how to reflect as you move up in rank, right? So I would say, don't take yourself or this too seriously. Enjoy it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're not reinventing anything. We're just trying to find our way, and yeah, not having like your quote unquote spirit guide is not fun. But don't be afraid to reach out to the guy next to you who's a higher rank or the one that's a lower rank. Develop those relationships. It's not fun if you come, take class, train, and then leave. Most of the fun that we have is after class, we'll sit down and we'll chat.
It's not as fun as it can be. It's not as an enriching experience as it is when you have ties. When you grow relationships with people there at the gym.
It's all about camaraderie.
I also feel to a degree
you also then train better with people that you trust more because you have a relationship with them.
It's an intimate sport.
Yeah.
This is one of a few sports only that you're this close with your training partner. You might as well get to know them. A little. You don't have to tell each other your deepest and darkest secrets, but get to know the guy or girl that you're training with. And then you have a vested interest in their growth. I always say, if you don't have a training partner, you don't have jiu-jitsu. How are you going to do jiu-jitsu with
I buried a white belt under the fourth mat.
Yes.
I was going to say, I like to creepily whisper secrets into ears of my training partners as I take their backs.
Yeah.
I could kill you with this.
I could kill you right now. You will not make it within 6 months.
Statistically, you are going to lose.
Just know I'm letting you live.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think one of the most important things that you've helped me out with is I was one of those people, I think, that was right from the get-go so hooked that I had to go every single day because I felt like it was other sports. It was like basketball. If I just kept shooting, I was going to get good at shooting. If I kept swinging the bat, I was going to get better at swinging the bat. If I just took ground balls, I'd get better at fielding. Jiu-jitsu doesn't necessarily work like that. You may be somebody that could go in 5 days a week and you're going to retain a lot of information. You're going to be able to apply it. But you also may be somebody that needs 3 days a week. And maybe you need to spend that fourth day on mobility training. Maybe you need your hips to open up more because they're too tight. Maybe your shoulders are messed up, so you need to rehab a little bit more on that and then go back to training. But listening to your body was one of the things that you explained to me. And another thing you told me was I had felt like I was plateauing, especially when you're in a school like ours where everyone's coming and everyone's getting better at the same pace that you are. So when you're a low rank, you don't feel like you're getting any better. You are, because 6 months later, you'll see that the next person walk in the door.
The next people that come in, you're like, oh,
you're like, wow, I really am a wizard at this.
Fucked you up.
Good.
But then you're
it's all relative.
But then you're like,
It's all
fuck,
relative.
I'm getting fucked up by everyone else.
So you feel a plateau.
Isn't it crazy though?
You feel
Just
a
that
plateau.
Those levels, dude.
And you said to me, you said, Eli, remember, you're still supposed to be having fun. And I would sit there and be like, whatever, like, what is the worst that's going to happen? I'm going to get choked out. Who cares? I'm going to tap.
It's letting go of the
Tapping
ego.
is learning.
Letting go of the ego.
Tap often.
And the ego is so the ego is so many different levels.
That's the best technique in the whole game.
Tapping.
The the fun part of it, or part of the fun of it, is then getting to practice and disseminating that information to, whether it's a peer, maybe even someone above you, but just something that that who you're training with doesn't know, and then they ask you, or you already know they don't know it because of their inexperience, right? They're much lower ranked than you or something. But I think that part of the fun is teaching it then, right? Because you are perfecting it. You have like a mentee who's asking you, who's like looking at you like, this, you just locked me up with this. How do I do this? And that is fun, because now you're not like in the stress of
the match itself.
Of the
Like
match
a struggle.
itself.
It's
And
a-
you're like, wow, I do know
it's
something, and
chess.
here's somebody asking me how to do it. So that's validating for you.
Well, I mean, there's blue belts that have brown belt rank movements, right? Mike Trottini, for example, shout out, as a little blue belt, he started doing the stiff arm, incorporating that. And I would say that as a low purple belt, he was a black belt level stiff arm, right? But that's just only one part of his game. The other part needs to elevate so he could be more well-rounded, and that happens. But that happens with everybody, right?
Is there anything that Mike Trottini's a white belt at still?
He's a jack of all trades.
I don't know.
I'm just trying to, you know how the roles are with Mike. The other night, I tried to do basically this pass that Mike likes to do to go to a triangle right from open guard, and I went to go do it, but I did it with the wrong foot.
Yeah,
So
you just
I
let him
took
pass
my
your
I
side
took my
control.
left foot and I went to his left hip, which basically just allowed him to pass the guard. Complete brain fart.
Yeah.
And he goes, "What are you retarded? What are you stupid?"
And that's another thing too, because he knows what you're capable. He
That
knows.
was great.
He knows. We know what you're capable of, and we get offended that you actually made a mistake,
An
you never
error.
make.
Yeah.
Exactly. But it's not like really offended. It's
No,
like, "Yo,
no,
bro,
but
what are you
it's
doing now?"
also part of like,
No,
it's like
that's
if you're
him
playing
busting your balls,
it's like
man.
if you're playing one-on-one with somebody in basketball and like you're drilling threes in their face and they're like, you're gonna play defense.
At
You know what
least,
I mean? Like
Like you're shooting, you're like 4 feet in front.
right.
Yeah.
You're gonna
yeah,
try.
I mean, as reflect, man, being a white belt and a blue belt were the most. That was the most fun time I had. Not that
That is
purple,
fun.
brown, or black aren't fun, but those times are really fun. And I think people like when you're on the mat, like you're looking with your blinders on, you're looking straight, right? Take some time to stop and look to your left and look to your right and take in the moment.
I felt like I
you know what
did.
mean?
I enjoyed. I knew it was gonna be a long journey, so I tried enjoying like
Oh, yeah.
every aspect of like where I was.
Absolutely.
Every belt, you know what I mean?
There's
Absolutely.
been
I
a
kinda
couple
recognize
times
that.
when people point. This is something I would tell somebody that is new, that has maybe only been around for like less than a year.
Mhm.
If you see somebody point at like a roll and you're not rolling, watch,
Mhm.
because they may be pointing at something that you may not see again, or something that is like special.
Mhm.
Like for example, when I was maybe like a 2 or 3 stripe white belt, I was cognizant of the fact when you and Radji were rolling that that was cool to pay attention to. 2 black belts.
Mhm.
Watch that level of acumen and IQ. And I pointed, and like the guy who was with me didn't shut up. And I was just like, there's 2 black belts rolling.
Would you stop talking?
Like I kind of just looked at him like, you should pay attention too, because this
Yes.
is awesome. Like enjoy this.
This is your baptism, buddy. So stop talking.
When I see 2 brown belts go, even today, even if I know I'll see them again, see like if I see you and like Shloko or you and Tom,
Oh yeah.
like I will sit, and if I'm not rolling, I will watch you guys, because that is awesome. Like to be able to see that. Or you guys go with Radji. Sometimes I'll see you guys go with Radji, and like I'll see that you guys are just like playing. No, I see that you guys are just playing, and I'll look around and find somebody else who's competing.
Yeah, because
He's
he's
very-
playing
he's
with his
very-
food.
He
bro.
lets you do your stuff and make your mistakes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, let's say he's very
He's
very
like-
generous to
Yeah,
us.
that's
and,
hilarious.
And he's
Thank you, Radji,
he's a
for
great-
always
yeah.
taking care
He's
of
like,
us.
Yes.
he's like, is it the killer whale that
The gentle
takes
beating.
that
Exactly.
takes the seal,
and
the killer
flips it
whale,
with the tail
and
out of the
flips
water.
it with the tail out of the water, and
You
like
see it fly
they
like
throw it
30
to each
feet up,
other.
and you're like, oh, it's gonna die on impact. like, oh shit!
It's
and
gonna
then all of a
fall right
sudden
into the
they
killer
the
whale's
killer whale
triangle.
jumps out of the water and like eats it
Lands on it.
before it even. Yeah,
Oh,
dude.
Well, it's not a
They-
cartoon. It doesn't exactly.
No,
happen
bro.
like that.
Put on the Discovery Channel.
They do some other weird shit to it too, which is not applicable here.
Yeah.
Rule
Well, I want
number
to
one.
talk about it now.
Rule tool.
Wait, so let's we're running out of time a little bit here, so let's backtrack a little bit. Where did we get to? We
about
were
advice for white and blue belts or
yeah,
whatever.
well in your training specifically, right? So we were just around. You were struggling to drive around at the train.
Yeah, so I was training at multiple
Mhm.
academies, right? And then we built up enough of a student base where now I could stay in-house more often than actually hit all these other academies, right? And then I remained at that academy for about 10 years as a 4-stripe brown belt. And then I parted ways at that academy and joined Radji's academy in 2015, I think it was. So I had left as a 4-stripe brown
Was it
belt.
15?
Well, yeah, because when we
It wasn't
met
at the
you-
end of 14.
It may have been.
I felt like I met you at
So-
the end of 14
I
because
think it may have
So I
been.
feel like you've brushed shoulders with a lot of people. Would you be able to highlight maybe some?
who sucks?
I never turned down a seminar, right? So
This is the
whenever
shit
there was a
list.
seminar to be held that was hosted by the academy that I was at, or even this one, or if there was another academy within the organization that was holding a seminar, I would participate. So I've probably participated in 50 to 60 seminars over the years, right? And I've had multiple seminars with guys like Radji Barrett, Hoyler, Gracie, Rafael Lovato Jr., Jeff Glover. Jeff Glover was an interesting seminar. Robert Drysdale. So I was lucky enough to participate in those seminars. And I say it this way, if I'm a Yankees fan, I would idolize someone like Derek Jeter. But I can't pick up my phone and call him and he'll answer the phone, right? But you can conceivably 10 years ago call like Hicks and Gracie's academy number and he might answer the phone,
Right.
You know what I mean? Or Rafael Lovato, you know? So that was the beauty of
Hey, what's
So,
happening?
yeah, if you were an early
man.
adopter, you might have had that opportunity.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right?
Hey, pendejo! Sell this on me, man.
Pendejo. Yeah. So they were easily accessible, these guys, right? And it was like, that's my idol. Those are my idols. And I can actually call them if I want to, or send them an email, you know? So that was the beauty of this sport. You know, they were not inaccessible, if that's the right word. to use.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I was able to hit as many seminars as possible because they weren't often out here because of the fact that it wasn't as prevalent in Jersey until recently.
Anything that you would attribute that would be like a common denominator amongst them, like anything that stands out to you as far as like
money.
well, yeah, they're all trying to make a buck.
Yes.
But as far as, you know, the styles, were they dramatically different? Was there something that you kept hearing? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. So almost every seminar, the instructor or the person that was holding the seminar, they did elaborate on their specific movements. Like if I was dealing with someone like a Radji Barrett, we did a lot of X guard stuff, right? Even though that was or X pass. I'm sorry, the X pass. The X guard is Ricardo. Who is it in New York City? Marcelo Garcia.
Yeah, yeah.
But he did a lot of X pass, and I showed you the X pass last night when we were messing around. Anyway, and then Hoyler did a lot of self defense, right? So that one.
Oh, the
part
X passes with that little shin,
Yeah,
the
exactly.
shin slice.
Yeah, passing the leg across,
Mhm.
and then passing to the right.
Right.
So, and Hoyler was more geared towards a lot of the self defense part of jiu-jitsu. The Gracies were geared towards that. That's textbook Gracie Umaita, Elio Gracie lineage. They do stress the self defense portion.
What's that umata?
Umaita is the section of Rio that their academy was located. At Gracie Baja, which is Carlos Gracie, that's a section of Brazil, Rio, their home academy was
The
located.
Favelas,
Huh?
the favelas or whatever.
Well, that's different.
Favela.
That was different.
Did you say
Yeah.
Valhalla?
He said Valhalla.
The Brazilian Vikings.
That's Fernando dos Nascimentos.
They
who was-
raped and pillaged one corner of the beach and left everyone else alone.
No, they
somehow
never.
keeping their
no,
complexion.
We will eat acai with Odin in the Great Hall.
So the Brazilians, they're very well known for enjoying the beach and loving the surf, and we call those guys the cariocas, right? We also do that in our warm up, that little karaoke.
Yeah, the
dance, right?
karaoke.
The karaoke is the guy that would go surfing, and he'd come back and change from his board shorts to his gi and train, and then go back to the beach. Right? That's
Don't
the
they?
life-
They kind of do the karaoke on the surfboard too, don't they? Because
That's
they're walking forward.
Yeah, exactly.
Yo, yeah, when you see someone really good at that, it looks kind of crazy when they're able to pull it off right.
Oh yeah.
Dude,
Yeah,
there
that's
was a in the book Breathe by Hicks and Gracie, there was a story about a surfer from Japan, I want to say, and big guy, and he was like getting into it with Hickson, and Hickson ended up doing like a Vale Tudo, I think, with him and beat the shit.
On the beach.
I think it was right
that
on the
fight?
beach. Yeah,
that was another Brazilian. He was
oh, it was another
he was a
Brazilian.
Vale Tudo guy that
Mhm.
it was like, well, my style is better than your style.
And Vale
measuring
Tudo is
dicks.
like no holds barred.
Anything goes. That's
Anything
the actual
goes.
translation in Portuguese.
So you can grab the cock like by the hand and do
I
whatever
will
you
mean,
want.
dick
I mean,
twist.
that wasn't my first thought, but I think that maybe
The
that's.
dick twist.
But yeah,
The first submission ever by a Gracie.
actually that fight that Hickson Gracie fight on the beach is on YouTube. So
Really?
you can find it. It's there.
Dude,
Somebody
can we find it right
camcorded
now?
I've seen it. Yeah.
Well,
it was
can we
filmed.
find it right now?
Somebody
Sure.
camcordered.
Well, we're running tight, but yeah, we can.
I'm running tight. What's the tightness?
We're at an hour and a half already.
Wow, that time flies.
It's the holiday episode, Leonard.
Is there, while he's
Mm.
searching, is there anything
Mm-mm.
else you want me to add or anything?
While he's searching, I mean, look, we're gonna have you on again,
Sure.
and even if we got to dig back a little
We
bit,
could start from 2006.
yeah, we could. We there's
You've been
a lot I
doing
want to
jiu-jitsu
talk
for
about.
how many
man.
years?
17 years.
17
Over
years.
17 years now. I started as a 33-year-old, and I'll be 51 in a couple of weeks. There it is, right there. That's the fight. There.
Oh.
And that guy,
Oh.
the guy he's
Left.
fighting.
It's not
The guy,
sharing
the
for
guy
the
he's fighting
stream,
is
yeah, hold on.
Hugo Duarte.
Oh, bitch.
Hugo Duarte actually fought MMA, and he ended up being a victim of Mark Kerr back in the day. If none of you know, Mark Kerr was called the Smashing Machine, and he got smashed pretty badly by Mark Kerr, who was an NCAA wrestler. He was one of the first to come out of the NCAA wrestling program to come into the UFC. Mark Kerr,
Yeah.
Royce Alger, guys like Mark Coleman, they were wrestlers. What's his name? Jackson.
Don Fry wasn't
Don Fry was a wrestler. Yeah,
This is
and that's
fascinating.
and while he's looking,
Dan Severin wasn't Dan
oh
Severin?
yeah, he was an Olympian too.
This is fascinating to me because
There,
this is like
See how he's buying-
social
he's,
media.
buying, he's buying time right now
He
to
took
figure out
his
what he's
shoes-
going to do by taking.
Oh,
his
now we're
shoes off.
serious.
Well,
now.
And he's going to take his
What's
shirt
this,
off
like
too.
19. What do you
Watch.
think this is? Like
1987, 86,
All right, motherfucker.
87.
Now we're
87.
even playing field. You look at my pecs, I look at your pecs.
You want to smoke a cigarette first?
Here we go. Now we.
He pulled him on top of him.
Yeah, and
I
this
mean,
is where the
you-
crowd
this
is.
is
where
Wait,
you
you get
lose it,
closer
yeah.
though. You'll see Hickson on top of
There you
him.
go.
You'll see him like pummeling this
Oh,
guy.
he's
Oh, is this
He's
Hickson?
dick twisting.
Yeah, that's
him.
Hickson in the guard.
And you know this is like a shoulder top.
Is Hickson the
Cam
one
Oh,
Camcorder.
yeah. Oh, the bazooka.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The bazooka camcorder.
The RCA camcorder.
It's holding.
I mean-
it's literally recording onto a
the
VHS.
battery was bigger than your laptop.
I mean, it's still pretty impressive. This is like the original IG story.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And this is sad too. But while this is playing, I'm going to, because we might have like people at the academy watching who are really super young, and so I'm gonna actually Google what these camcorders look like because
You don't think they
So-
know what they look
I really don't.
Oh
I
man,
think- I
tell
think
yo,
I just got
you out
knocked
there,
off.
Google what they look like.
I got knocked
my
off.
God.
All I gotta do for
So, but these are
it'd be funny to show it.
these are the
I guess.
videos in the early days that you would see of Hickson that would kind of enhance his mystique of who Hickson was, back in the day.
Now it's just like some bullshit.
Anyway, so yeah, that was one of the videos of Hickson.
Brought to you
hear
by-
these stories, and
That's
you
that.
see it online. And you're like, wow, this guy's like, a god, basically.
And I feel like
Yeah,
I
because there wasn't
guess-
many other videos to compare to.
Nothing. No.
That's it. He's just like, oh shit, this
and
dude.
so the Vale Tudo fights, the no holds barred, and martial arts facing each other. Did that really the inception of it was in Brazil?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
And
from the early 20th
ultimately,
century.
the reason we have UFC, Bellator,
Yeah, 'cause
one,
it co-
all
it
that is
combined,
because
it combined everything.
all roads
because it
lead to-
combined everything.
Because in like think about it, in America, it was every sport was its sport. Wrestling, it's just wrestling. That was the first time they encompassed like different martial arts against.
Well, what happened was what actually prompted the development of mixed martial arts. The size of that camera was the fact that was solely due to the fact that wrestlers started coming to the UFC. They were joining the
Yeah.
UFC and competing, and the Brazilian Jiu Jitsu guys had no answer to the wrestlers. So what happened was because they had no answer to the wrestlers. Because, but again, the jiu-jitsu lifestyle, let's go back, like the karaoke lifestyle, it was a chill lifestyle.
Yeah.
But a wrestler, an NCAA
It's
wrestler,
intense.
is one of the best conditioned athletes in the world, right? So they couldn't compete against a guy that was going for 10 minutes straight at 100%.
Yeah.
So what they did was they recruited some of these wrestlers to teach them how to wrestle in Brazil. Like a fellow named Daryl Golar, great wrestler. They brought him to Brazil in the late 90s to teach all these guys, Brazilian top team, before they migrated to the United States. He taught those guys how to defend and wrestle.
I have a question.
Sure.
How much cocaine do you have to sell to buy one of these camcorders back then?
Sell. I mean, you could smuggle a whole kilo in there.
That had to
There's
have been
a-
super expensive to own one of those.
Yeah, there's a guy I know who has been a a photographer and a videographer since like the 70s, and he said that back then what is in most smartphones now, that camera setup in the 70s and early 80s would have cost like $30K
Wow.
So, yeah,
to be able to get
crazy.
that type of quality that you just get in your pocket now. So yeah, now that video that we just watched, the quality was so shitty, and now anyone can just
On
shoot
their
HD
phone.
video in their phone.
Yeah.
This is what this guy on the beach was holding. So maybe not this exact camera, but this is
Something
all
similar.
there was. It was the shoulder top.
You know what's fascinating too? Like even today, if you watch like baseball, hockey, these guys are very skilled because they're watching, a puck. It's not easy
Yeah.
to watch a puck, even on like the new TVs now, 4K. Sometimes you have trouble following the puck.
Well, definitely.
Playoffs are going on right now, so it's a very,
Sure.
very.
Contentious time.
So,
It's topical.
Well,
but think
relative.
about it. They like
Topical.
you would think that how quickly like technology has changed. They're still sitting there, moving that thing around, like watching it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like you would think it'd be at this point, it'd be like a helmet. Like they'd just be like, just watching. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of nuts, man.
An AI
Yeah.
camera.
So yeah, Joe's camera went out again. We can still hear you because you're obviously
Let me
got
see
the
if I
mic,
can
but we
enter
can't
to
see
it.
you.
Am I in?
There you go. It's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, it dropped off for a second there. So
Well, it
yeah,
might be time to wrap then.
perfect, guys. Thank you
Right?
for having me. I
Yeah.
appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
That was
Yeah, it
awesome.
was
I mean,
fun.
we didn't get to the whole like up to today, but you'll be on
We'll
again
do the second
You're
one.
right?
definitely gonna be on again.
for the third time.
Dude,
You'll
I
be
got-
our most frequent
Oh, that's awesome.
visitor.
I mean, look,
Yeah.
Awesome.
being a professor at our school and your insight. I mean, I know that with me, the guidance that you have, I have a ton of questions for people to hear because I've asked you things and I've gotten such amazing answers that have helped me set my own intent
Mhm.
for what I want for my jujitsu. And then I'm sure that if others would hear,
Oh, his camera came back.
they would enjoy as well. So
Oh,
we
absolutely.
definitely need you back on the show, man.
Oh, thank you very much. And can I just put something out there? To
Of course,
whoever's
yeah.
listening, all the students who are listening, let me hit this again. I'm accessible. So when I'm on the mat, please don't be afraid to come up to me, approach me, and ask me any questions. That's
Yeah.
what I'm there for.
Absolutely.
I'm there to help elevate you guys.
Oh yeah.
So
I
yeah,
was-
thank
I
you.
Yeah,
wa-
take
I wa-
advantage of that because we have all been coached by Joe for many years now, and
And,
it's 100% true. If there's anyone out to learn from on the mats, it's definitely Professor Joe for sure.
Yeah. It's
Take advantage.
Obviously a different perspective, but it's equally to me as I think as valuable as any other black belt, and
Thank you.
definitely
It
And
literally
we knew you before you had the black belt.
Yes, thank you.
there's things that he's taught me that like Radji has given me the entire recipe and I'm sitting there I'm like, man, this meal is so good, it tastes so good, I'm eating it, it's nuts, it's so good. And then Joe will be like, hey, have you ever tried Chick-fil-A sauce on this chicken before? And I'll be like, wow. That works. And like
Yes.
it'll just be like one little thing that'll change, and then all of a sudden, whether it's a push pull, I mean, the reason it was him and Mike Trattini, the reason that I wanted to start using Neon Belly, and like I've been the last 6 months, just as soon as I can, I go right to Neon Belly to try to figure out how I can attack, what motion I'm going to get from my partner. I did want to get into differences between Radji's game, Joe's game, where Joe is at with his jiu-jitsu today, but we're going to save a lot of that stuff for future episodes. Now that you guys know he's going to be on, if you have any questions you want us to ask him in the future, or things that you want to talk about with some of our other competitors that we have on the show, guys, ask it, whether it's on the mats, DMing us, texting us, however you want to get in touch with us. Make sure to get your questions out there because we'll love to ask them to our guests.
Hell yeah.
All righty.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for joining us again. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, sir.
We love to have you.
Yes, thank you as
Thank you,
always,
guys.
man.
We'll catch you guys next week. Remember,
Awesome.
adapt or get tapped.
Later, guys.
Later.